Well, thank you very much. That was a lovely, generous introduction. And can I tell you what a privilege it is to be up here? Because we often in the podcast world will break mid-flow because we don't know a thing. And the phrase that's used in our podcast family is, hang on, I just have to pop to the Bodleian. What, of course, we mean is, going to wiki this really quickly. So, Jimmy, I owe you more than I can ever say. Thank you so much for all the work. And look, at the 25th anniversary, I just don't feel like you clapped enough. You've used it. Clap for it.
Thank you.
Considering the fact that most of these people will have used Wikipedia most days, and it is your anniversary, and they really ought to be giving you something in way of gift, what is it that you would most like from these people today?
I mean, the best gift you can make to Wikipedia is just one edit. Find something that needs improving and just make a little edit and fix something. That's what we love.
Okay. Very good. We're living through a time of global crisis when it comes to credibility. And nobody trusts anybody anymore. Nobody trusts expertise. They certainly don't trust politicians. They don't trust the media. They trust nobody. And you talk a lot in your book about trust. And there is this one phrase that you use, which I found particularly striking. Trust is not something you demand. It's something you design for. Now, 25 years ago, that landscape that you were designing in was very different to the one that we have today. How do you design for a landscape where everybody hates everyone, no one trusts anybody, and there's so much shouting?
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that we should really remember is that it's very easy to get that very negative view of humanity and of the world, particularly if you hang out on some of the worst places in social media, like X, where just horrible people are screaming at each other. But of course, we all know in our normal, personal, day-to-day lives, we still have a huge amount of trust for other people, trust for, the institutions that we are personally involved with and so forth. Not everybody, not everything, of course. And so there is a crisis of trust. When we look at, for example, the Edelman Trust Barometer survey shows really record low or close to record low expressed trust in all kinds of institutions, journalism, and so forth. And so really the whole point of the book is to say, how do we get back to a culture of trust? What are the lessons that I've learned with Wikipedia, which has gone from being kind of a joke to one of the few things people trust, but also is incredibly trusting. I mean, one of the amazing things about Wikipedia, even to this day, is that you can go on Wikipedia and 99% of the pages are completely unlocked, and you can click edit and make a change, hit save, it goes live immediately, and you don't even have to log in to do that. Like, that's really kind of a shocking thing, and you would think, well, that's obviously never going to work. But people thought, obviously, that's never going to work 25 years ago, and it still works today because most people aren't so horrible. Most people are actually relatively trustworthy. We just need to figure out and work on the institutional arrangements to bring that trust to the forefront, make it a real core part of society and our institutions.
Okay, so just to let you in on not a secret, but normally, you have a Zoom or you meet somebody that you're going to be doing an on-stage on. And we had a chat about the things we might chat about. And I think I managed to talk myself into such a deep depression because I'm just not as hopeful as you. I mean, you sort of say, there's a fundamental decency about people. People are trusting. And you said the algorithm screws with our humanity. But there is also a polarization at the bus stop. There's a polarization in politics. There are people who do not live in the bubble of X, Y, or Z, and you know what I'm talking about. And, they still feel very strongly in opposite directions where there's no chatting over a very high fence. So you said, okay, I could be Eeyore and you would be Tigger. Tell me what you're basing your hopefulness on, because I can give you many examples of people being more and more polarized off social media.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we have to acknowledge that there is this incredible polarization, but I don't think it comes from those people. I think it's something that people are absorbing. So, we see a breakdown of trust in politics amongst the politicians. So we just went through, the U.S. just went through the longest government shutdown in history because the two sides couldn't come to a fairly straightforward agreement about sort of finishing the spending authorization, the budget. Because they don't trust each other. It's become so toxic in Congress, and obviously that does then, it reflects out into the wider public. If our leaders are basically saying anyone who disagrees is trying to destroy the country, or is like, come on, that's ridiculous. Like, we know that's not true, and we know that yes, people have different viewpoints. That's fine. We've always had that. That's part of what society is about. People have different understanding of the world, different backgrounds, different values, but we can almost always find some reasonable accommodation, a way to say, oh, let's compromise. I won't get everything I want, you won't get everything you want, but that's okay. Like, we can move forward, and we do this all the time in our local personal lives and so forth. So I think there is hope. I mean, we've been there before, and I think when we trace some of the causes of this, I do think a lot of it is the algorithms of social media, which tend to promote content that is more aggressive and more engagement in a bad way. But we have to remember, like, okay, let's step away from all that and say, no, actually, you know what? There are people who I disagree with politically, but they're basically decent people, and they've got, they want their kids to do well, and all of the things that everybody wants. And we can get back to that.
See, okay. Depressed again. So an aunt of mine used to say, if wishes were fishes, go swim in the sea. You can wish for that kind of world, but how do you make it happen? Another thing that you've written in your book is when people believe a system is fair, they will tolerate disagreement. When they believe it is rigged, every disagreement becomes existential. Now, I think that's true. Mm-hmm. But then you can't just keep telling people. I mean, it's a kind of a vicious circle. You can't tell people, actually, essentially, everything is fair when their lives are telling them it is not. And therefore, there is always going to be that existential extinction event feeling when you're having a disagreement these days.
Yeah, and I do think it is about fixing some of those basics. Like, why do people think things are unfair? And there's 1,000 different things in the world, 1,000 different reasons, 1,000 different things we might look at. But they do all come back to failures of transparency, failures of empathy, failures of logic. These are the things that we talk about in the book. It's like, we can trace it to what is it that makes people feel the system is unfair. I'll just give one example, sort of that I would look at. In the UK where I live, it's a democracy, but there are some elements of the way it actually works that clearly aren't functioning very well. First past the post means, in a common sort of electoral scenario, one party will receive almost the same number of votes as another party. This is the minority parties, and one will get 30 seats in parliament, the other will get 1 or 2. Well, the people who voted on that side are like, hold on, this is rigged. The system isn't working. It isn't really rigged. It's just badly designed. There are ways to fix it, and we need to really focus on those ways of fixing things that aren't working for people.
But do enough people want to change and fix things to fix things?
I think they do. I mean, I think there's a real passion. Like, people, all the people, like, that passion for fixing things, for changing things, is one of the reasons that we are seeing a rise of populist, potentially authoritarian parties. This isn't a good thing, but that is an expression of people's desire for change, an expression of saying, the system is broken for me. It's not really, so again, UK example, all the major political parties came out against Brexit, and yet Brexit won anyway. I don't believe that's because the public was actually clamoring for Brexit. It was almost as much of a protest vote of like saying, look, the current sort of ad hoc status quo isn't working. So I think there is that passion for proper reform, proper change. And I do think, like, before we can get to whatever policy, we also have to think about building the conditions of trust, building the conditions where people do feel like the system isn't rigged. Yes, there are problems. Yes, we can solve them. But that's where we have to focus our attention.
But, okay. and this is the last time I'm going to come at you with sadness, but when people do not agree on something as basic as what is a fact, and that's going to lead us all into, the world of Wikipedia, when they will dispute what is a fact, or what was a fact yesterday, is no longer a fact today, and is actually a political standpoint rather than a fact tomorrow, how's that going to work?
Well, I mean, it won't work. Like, as long as that condition is there, that people have no sort of shared understanding of the world, no shared context, then yes, it's inevitable. I mean, one of the people I quote in the book, Christian Amanpour, a very respected journalist, who talks about exactly that if we don't have a shared basis of facts and understanding about, the essentials, then discussions about what we ought to do are completely hopeless. There's no answers possible because, take an issue like immigration. If I believe the number of people migrating illegally into, say, the UK is 1,000 a year, and you think it's 10 million a year, well, turns out we're both completely wrong. But then what do we do about it? Well, we're going to have a completely different understanding of the facts and completely different. So this is why that Wikipedia model of saying, okay, let's first just try to calmly establish what the facts are and to acknowledge where there's disagreement, to lay out, different sources have, say, these different things. Here are the things that we all can agree on. Like, that is a basic fundamental, because if you don't have that kind of shared understanding of reality, then everything else breaks down. And so that's, for me, that's my life passion, is to say, like, we really do need a neutral core of basic understandings about the world, and that includes a basic understanding of an acknowledgement of the points of difference, of the points where we say, okay, well, some sources say this and some say that. Okay, let's grapple with that as well. Because without that kind of thoughtful discourse, I mean, there's nothing left to do except for start shooting each other. And that's terrible.
Yeah, well, I suppose you are tiggerish that this is going to happen, that we're just going through a bad patch and everything's going to be all right.
Well, I
tomorrow.
mean, we're going to muddle through. That's, my prediction for the next 100 years is there's not going to be a Wikipedia utopia where everybody suddenly goes, oh, right, let's get the facts first and then debate about the issues. That's not going to happen. But at the same time, we're not about to descend into complete sort of savage chaos. I think that we're going to have a mess, as we always do. That's humanity, that's life, that's democracy. But that mess, we can fight for it to be more thoughtful, more tidy, more intellectually grounded, and I think that's what I'm trying to advocate for.
How did Wikipedia not become, as so many other big connecting bodies have become, a battleground? Because what Wikipedia does do is say, you know what, come to us, trust us, we'll give you the facts. How is it that you don't have people from behind their keyboards editing, re-editing, and you basically can't read the page because it's just flickering from all the changes?
Well, obviously we do have a lot of that. We have a lot of people debating things and people with very different ideas and things like that. But I think what brings us together is a unified view that it's not up to us to decide these issues, but to present them in a way that is fair. I always like to give examples because I think it resonates with people. And my favorite example is, let's take about the topic of abortion. So a controversial topic. And I apologize, I'm going to use a very sort of Western framework for this, but like you can imagine a kind and thoughtful Catholic priest who thinks that abortion is a grave sin, and a kind and thoughtful Planned Parenthood activist who thinks abortion is a human right and is important. Well, those two people, they're never going to disagree. I mean, they're never going to agree about the fundamentals, but what they can agree on is to present the issue fairly. As long as they understand, okay, Wikipedia is not going to say abortion is a sin, but it can say the Catholic Church position on abortion is thus and such, and the Pope has said this, and critics responded that. And it turns out people are actually quite good at that. I mean, a certain type of person, the Wikipedian, is quite good at that, and they're willing to say, okay, right, I want to collaborate with someone who I very much disagree with, but we can work together to present the issue fairly. And that does work very, very well. And in fact, if you go to the Wikipedia entry about abortion, it says pretty much what I just described, and that works very well. Now, obviously, it does take a certain amount of goodwill, a willingness to say, okay, I'm here, like actually, establishing that neutral explanation of the issue is more important to me than winning the fight, which means not everybody is good at this. A lot of people are good at this, but not everybody's good at this. So certainly we have people coming in all the time from social media battles and things, and they come in, they think, I'm here to fight for. No, don't come to fight at Wikipedia. We really find that boring and tedious. What you should do is say, okay, look, this is biased. There's these other sources. We need to incorporate that and acknowledge the existing statements and da-da-da. You can be a good Wikipedian, and you can set aside your own sort of ideological perspective and your own view, at least to an extent. Obviously, we're human beings, so we can't fully do that. But you can say, okay, right, I understand. Like, we're going to explain the issue to someone. And, yeah, people are okay at it.
Do you know, when you say Wikipedian, I just think of a friendly alien. I mean, what is a regular Wikipedian like?
So I would say, the Wikipedia community, I would say, we're very geeky, very nerdy. We very friendly people, very nice. Not particularly political, I think, because people who are really political activists find the Wikipedia environment maybe not so comfortable. They would rather go out and campaign somewhere, and that's fine. People should do that. Actually, what's interesting about Wikipedia is we are drawn naturally to talk about these massive issues of the day and the big controversies of our age. But a huge amount of the work in Wikipedia is not in controversial areas. It's sort of documenting, authors who are appearing at this festival, documenting what their books say, documenting obscure points of history or biology or science or whatever it might be. And there's a huge amount of work going on in Wikipedia that isn't in areas that are particularly controversial, although I should add, human beings, we can find controversy anywhere, so there's always something to fight about. But they aren't the big kind of hard issues of our time. And so what really works well in many cases is for that community who've come together because someone has a passion for trains and they really like documenting every train engine that's ever existed. And then they can also sort of be drafted in to help with a really complicated problem in a controversial subject, but they come to it with not an axe to grind. They come to it and go, okay, well, hold on. Let's just say what the sources say, and let's try to get a diversity of sources and so on. So, Wikipedia is the proof. Like, humans can do this. You can come together and you can sort of say, let's find a way to cooperate, to collaborate, even though we may have some fundamental disagreements.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about individuals who either use or help make. What we haven't talked about is the big, muscly strongmen of politics that seem to be littering the planet at the moment. How much are they putting pressure on Wikipedia and saying, you know what, that's just not acceptable. You cannot put that up. And if you do put that up, we're going to make your life very, very difficult in the area of our control.
Yeah, I mean, it does happen a little bit here and there, but one of the things that's really interesting about Wikipedia is the very design of it at many different levels is all about intellectual independence. So, for example, our funding, we're not funded by governments, we're not funded by a handful of billionaires. The vast majority of the funding from Wikipedia is people giving an average of $10. That's a typical donation to Wikipedia. So those millions of people donating money really do help us keep intellectual independence. So if the U.S. government says, if you don't change something, we're going to cut your funding, it's like, well, you don't give us any funding, so we're not going to listen to you. And then, we're very careful at how we organize the Wikimedia Foundation and our local chapters and everything to preserve that. So it becomes very, very hard to pressure Wikipedia. I'm not the editor-in-chief of anything, so I can't make Wikipedia say what I want it to say. And so that is super crucial. So we're not really worried about that kind of thing. I mean, obviously we try and keep our volunteers safe, because that is one thing. We have volunteers in jail in various places, in authoritarian places in the world, and we do what we can to help them. But broadly, we think it's really important that we recognize the fundamental right of the community to look at the sources and speak the truth. We have to have that.
So, I mean, you sort of said very lightly, yes, it happens from time to time. I'm just really interested in the mechanics of how it happens. Now, since you're the face of Wikipedia, you're Jimmy Wales, you're the one who pops up on my screen every so often saying, donate some money, you use my service, help. who picks up the phone, and at what level do they pick up the phone? And like, what do they say? Feel free to name countries if you like. But what's the mechanics of that kind of muscle man pressure?
It doesn't really work like that. Like, we haven't really had that. I mean, we've had things like, so for example, I'll just talk about Russia. Russia has issued some fines. This is all you can read about. They don't like certain things in Wikipedia. They find us, I mean, one of the amusing things is they once blocked us, and then a few hours later unblocked us and said Wikipedia's agreed to comply with Russian law. We didn't do anything. We didn't even, we by the time we heard they were blocking us, it was unblocked. We're like, I have no idea what they're talking about over there, but fine. So, there are things like that. We're not accessible in China, largely. We're blocked in China. That has, that comes and goes over the years, and that's something we have to cope with. But it isn't really, and we don't really, it's more like blustering in the press from time to time and that sort of thing. But we just, we try to, we're very friendly. I try to talk to as many people as possible and to say, like, okay, actually, hold on, you might imagine this or that, but here's what we're really doing. So for us, what we really think, like, the most important thing we can do is try and educate governments and politicians, like, oh, here's how Wikipedia works. We're not here with an axe to grind. We're here to cover what's in the sources. And if you don't like that, that's kind of hard for us to do anything about, because these are the facts of history.
Do you monitor sort of, well, I'm sure you do, usage? And have you noticed an uptick in people searching for things on Wikipedia? Or are fewer and fewer people coming to you as a trusted source because they've got their own little bubble silos where they get their information from?
No, I mean, I think not so much that. Yeah, we pay some attention to the amount of traffic, obviously we would, but because Wikipedia, we're not an advertising-driven website, so we're not like most sort of .com websites would be completely obsessed with every click and how long people are on the site and how many pages and how many ads did they see. We don't really obsess over it at that level. I mean, at the board level, we get occasional report on traffic or something like that, but it's not our core. We spend more time thinking about our mission, and neutrality and quality and the community and the health of the community. But in terms of the traffic, one thing we did announce earlier this year is we've seen about an 8% drop in page views over
how much? Say it again, because that honk happened at the same time. Say the number again.
About an 8% drop over a year's time, which it's hard to really interpret. I don't think that's people retreating into bubbles. I don't think that's the cause. It may be that we've seen this kind of thing, the Google algorithm changes, AI. We've seen an increase in traffic from AI bots scraping Wikipedia, and this is something that we are...
So you need to explain to those who don't understand the lingo.
Yes.
When an AI bot is trying to scrape Wikipedia, what's it doing?
Yeah, so an AI bot scraping Wikipedia means they're coming and downloading every single page of Wikipedia to use the content to train their AI model. And I only recently came to understand this. This puts a huge amount more strain on our server infrastructure than humans do. And why is that? Well, because humans tend to go to the most popular pages, which are already computed and calculated and stored in memory. So, for example, when the Queen died, millions of people came and read the page about the Queen in English Wikipedia. But we already had the page created and we just fire it out. It's very, very low cost. Whereas if you come and you crawl every single page of Wikipedia, then we need more database servers. We have to construct the page over and over and things like that. So we have our enterprise product, and actually we've just announced some new customers for that. So we've got Perplexity. Oh dear, I've forgotten the press release. But anyway, a lot of big names. And we think we're going to get several more in the next few months. Google has always been a great customer of that. So that's a good thing, because if they are putting a lot of pressure on our infrastructure, well, those donors who are giving $10 aren't giving to subsidize big companies scraping Wikipedia. They are giving to support our work. So anyway, we're optimistic about that. We think the rest of these companies are going to come on board, or we're going to start blocking them more aggressively if they don't behave themselves. So.
I mean, you sort of opened the door talking about clicking AI. How evil are the tech bros?
I think they vary. You know,
Well, let's
I
talk
think,
about the spectrum. Who's
oh, I'm
very
not.
evil and who's only slightly evil? I mean, just categorize them for me.
I'm the neutral wiki guy. I'm just very. I can document the facts, and you can decide yourself what you think is evil or not. You know, I think, you know, as in any big industry, there's a wide variety of players. Some are more serious and more diligent about trying to do the right thing, and others really don't care, and I think that's a shame. And you know, in my book, I call out certain, you know, things that I think are not right. You know, algorithms that are designed solely for engagement tend to promote content that is divisive and addictive and so forth, and I don't think that's a good thing. And then I know there are other players out there who struggle with that. One of my favorite examples is YouTube. So YouTube, they have at various times had problems because if their algorithm just tries to keep you watching as many videos as possible, they end up promoting content that doesn't make you happy and doesn't make you satisfied. Google has taken, in my view, imperfectly, but they're a big company, they do what they can. They've taken a view like, actually, we don't want that. Like, that's not the right way for the sustainability of the long haul. So they've made what efforts they can to say, well, of course, we need people to come to YouTube, and we want them to stay for a while because they're enjoying it, but we don't want to do that at the expense of people thinking YouTube is destroying my life, and that's not a good thing. And so they're grappling with that because it's a hard problem. Other players out there, they're just like, yeah, as long as the people are addicted, that's great. And I think that's unfortunate. And I think people should just stop using those
Yeah,
things.
I mean, those are the people who don't care about how much money they make and how addicted we get. Are there some out there who are actively trying to destroy the fabric of decency? I mean, that kind of thing.
I'm not sure. I don't think anybody, I mean, the interesting thing is, I don't think anybody thinks of themselves in that way. Like, nobody thinks, okay, great, what I really want to do today is destroy the fabric of decency in society. Not really. They may be pursuing an agenda, or they may be more likely unthinking about the consequences of what they're doing, which is also quite bad. But, you know, broadly, do people really think, oh, I think I should destroy civilization today? Probably not. Not many.
Okay. So, I mean, it was a long flight over because, like Jimmy, I also live in England. And I downloaded, because I missed it the first time around. So hands up if you've seen Mountainhead. It's, okay, not many of you. Okay, so I'll just do a quick explainer. It's a play on Ayn Rand's Fountainhead. And it's about all these sort of tech bros who meet up a mountainside in the snow. Have you seen it?
I saw about half of it.
Okay, I mean, I'm only 2 episodes in, no spoilers, please. But what it is, it's just basically all these people who do control the world and the flow of information, who all get together for a not so jolly social. It's dark and it's awful. Do you guys hang out? I mean, I just wonder, do you all get together periodically? And because you're being generous, about intentions. I just wondered whether that happens.
I mean, I see people at conferences, and I know some people socially, yeah.
But you don't go skiing together down a mountain?
I am from Alabama, which is a very warm climate, and I don't like snow. I do go to Davos every year, and I kind of hate it because of the snow, so I definitely don't go skiing with anyone.
Okay.
I mean, I'm going to drop any pretense of neutrality. I don't like snow.
Okay. God, the whole of Wikipedia crashes off the rails. It's the 25th anniversary, so I'd be completely remiss if we didn't take you back 25 years to sort of a much younger Jimmy. Quarter of a century ago, what were you thinking, what was in your head when you... And where were you when you came up with it? Let's go right back to brass tacks. Transport us to that day 25 years ago.
Yeah, so I was living in San Diego, California. No snow. And I had been working on a project called Newpedia for about almost 2 years before this. And Newpedia was the same vision, a free encyclopedia for everyone. But I didn't know really about online communities. I didn't know how to do it. And so we set up a very top-down process. It was a 7-stage review process to get anything published. It was more academic than a traditional encyclopedia. And I knew it wasn't going to work when I decided I would write an article, because I was very frustrated at the slow process. And so I thought, I'm going to write an article. it was very intimidating. They were going to take my draft and send it to the most prestigious professors they could to review it. And it was like, oh, this is really scary and really hard. And so on that day, 25 years ago today, I put up the wiki and just said, okay, let's just try this. And we first thought of it as maybe this will be a side project for people to scratch pad for making drafts and things like that. But very quickly, we had more work done in 2 weeks than we had in almost 2 years. And we saw the community we had gathered around Nupedia finally like unleashed to say, oh yeah, let's just get started. Let's start writing things. And it was really exciting time, because back then you might be the first person to write, Jaipur is a city in India, and hit save and say, look, an amazing encyclopedia article. And obviously it's nothing, it's just one sentence. But then we come back a few days later and people had added more information, the population and the name of the state and a little bit about the politics and so on and so forth. And so, that ability to just get started was really exciting, and it really unleashed the creativity. And we launched, pretty soon after, we launched in German and French and a bunch of other languages. And it just grew and grew and grew over the years.
Yeah, so I mean, just the we that we did this, was it like just a really small group of nerds in a room with too little ventilation? I mean, paint the picture for us.
No, I mean, we weren't in a room. We were on the internet. And so actually, even in the very early days, I remember in the very earliest days, I would wake up in the middle of the night and go downstairs and get on my computer and check the site, because I was afraid somebody would come in and trash the whole thing overnight. And I soon realized, actually there's this guy in Australia, and when I'm asleep, he's awake and he's looking after the site. And so as we began to have the community around the world, it was like, okay, look, I can trust these people. Like, there are all these great people, volunteers who are coming forward and saying, I want to help, this sounds fun. And then they would look and somebody would vandalize and they go, no, that's not right. You got to switch it back and so on. And so, yeah, in that very early times, it was really, very much online. The earliest community were largely academics, but people who had gathered around the project in the Nupedia days, who are now suddenly unleashed. And I remember it was a couple years later, I traveled to London for the first time in my life, and we had a little Wikipedia meetup, and I met, it was the first time I had ever met any other Wikipedians not online. And I met them for the first time in person. It was great fun. And then, a lot of them are still involved.
So I was going to say, you've got 25 years serving Wikipedians out there.
Yeah. There's a handful still around. Every year we do our annual conference, and we do it in a different city every year around the world. So just now we did it in Nairobi last summer, and this year we'll be in Paris, and I don't know after that. And we've done it in many, many different places around the world. And at that conference, I always sort of do my annual thing, and I ask, who's been here this many times, and there's still like 4 of us who have been to every single Wikimania, going all the way back. And so, yeah, it's great. It's a community. It's a bunch of friends even today.
Yeah, and is there a concentration of Wikipedians in certain parts of the world? I mean, and do you have an underrepresentation in certain parts of the world?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. We see, actually, so of all the communities of all the countries in the world, the Indian community is the 5th largest group of contributors. So there's a lot of contributors in India, and we have many different languages. But what we see in terms of participation traditionally is it very much follows broadband internet access, so you need a fast internet connection. It doesn't have to be that fast, but if it's really hard to get online, obviously you're not going to contribute in Wikipedia. The per capita rates of participation depends a lot on literacy rates, so places that have very poor literacy aren't contributing to Wikipedia. That's obviously true. But that doesn't rule out anywhere from contributing. There are always people who are literate and excited. In fact, many of the places that broadly have literacy problems in society are also places where that kind of person who's a Wikipedian is very passionate about, we need to get knowledge to everyone, we need to educate everyone. And so there's a real passion around that. And then, it's interesting. I mean, we see like the German-speaking countries love Wikipedia. It's very, very popular per capita basis in those countries. We've always lagged a little bit in Korea, although we've caught up in recent years, and that was for, again, a locally unique reason, which is they had a website that was like a question and answer website that was very good quality, and the kind of people who are like thoughtful, kind, generous people really loved Naver, and they were on Naver all the time, and then it took them a while to find Wikipedia. So yeah, it varies around the world, but not in any super surprising ways.
And not in any way where sometimes you wake up at night thinking, we could have bias here because we don't have the views of this part of the world.
I mean, we definitely do. We definitely have that a lot. Like one of the things that we think about a lot is representation of different kinds of people in Wikipedia. So we know that the Wikipedia community is predominantly male, and we know that this impacts the content in all the ways that you would think. I would say some things are changing a bit as 25 years have gone on. So in the early days, I would have said our entries about early childhood development are very bad because we've got a lot of young men who know nothing about children and no interest. Now a lot of them have kids.
But they have older, so much to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we do think a lot about how do we bring new people into the community from different underrepresented groups, which may be in some cases surprising. I mean, we're all, it's very common to think about, we need more women involved, but maybe we need some conservative men because maybe when we're accused of being liberally biased, we should say, okay, well, hold on then. Let's grapple with that. If that's true, what can we do about it? How do we get kind and thoughtful conservatives to come and join Wikipedia? And all of that is really important to us. Yeah.
Well, look, I think it's time. The clock has frozen. You've frozen time.
Oh, great.
So
fantastic.
Here we are forever.
We can just
now.
stay as long as we
10
like.
minutes, great. We've got 10 minutes for questions. So if you could kindly wait till a microphone gets to you, can I make a huge request that just ask a question, don't give a speech, or it's just, tiresome. So if you've got a question, please put up your hand, wait for a microphone to come to you. Put your hand up and keep it up, and if you do that, I'll never see you. Okay, you're the first gentleman I've seen, and I would like a woman from this side. A woman! Wave at me.
Right
There's a woman right there. Can we get a microphone to that lady over there? Stand up so they see you, so you will not be ignored, madam. Right, okay, let's take one from here. Okay.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Anita. 15 years ago, I couldn't imagine my life without my BlackBerry. It was impossible to conceive that I wouldn't have a BlackBerry for the rest of my life. I feel the same way about Wikipedia today. But having said that, is there an existential crisis you see at some point, with generative AI, the likes of ChatGPT, etc.? I really, really can't handle another heartbreak. So please tell me that I'm going to be okay with Wikipedia for forever.
Hold him, Jimmy, hold him.
Yeah,
okay.
It's going to be okay. We'll get through this together. I'm by your side. So let's talk about generative AI. So at the present time, the large language models aren't good enough, and they make stuff up all the time. The hallucination problem is terrible. One of the things I like to do to test new models as they come out is I always ask, who is Kate Garvey, my wife? Because she's not a famous person, but she's a known person. She worked in the Blair administration for a long time, and she promotes the global goals and things like this. But it's kind of the perfect example because the language models have heard of her and don't really know, so they just make stuff up. So they once said that she started a nonprofit with Miriam Gonzalez, who's Nick Clegg's wife, who to promote women's empowerment in the workplace. It sounds like my wife, Kate Garvey. It sounds like Miriam. It's completely false. But we do know the Cleggs. Our kids go to the same school, and Nick worked at Meta and so on. And when I showed my wife this, she's like, wow, that could have happened. Like, it sounds very plausible. And that's actually one of the dangers of large language models is when they hallucinate and they make stuff up, it tends to be plausible. They're predicting the most likely next token, and it's plausible, which is really dangerous for you as a reader because it doesn't, if it said, oh yeah, Kate Garvey, she was the first person born on Mars, you might go, oh, well, hold on a minute, that doesn't seem right. But even if you're a personal friend who's lost touch with Kate for 20 years, and you read, oh, of course, well, she was involved in politics, so of course she would be doing something with Nick Clegg's wife, and oh, women's empowerment, that definitely sounds like Kate. No, it's just not true, and so that's actually one of the things. So at least right now, we're not concerned about that. Of course, the technology will continue to improve, and so, you know, at some point, I can't really predict what large language models will be like in 50 years' time. But we also know that our community is very interested in, you know, are there ways that this technology can be used to help us with our work? Can it not write Wikipedia entries? It's not close to that. But can it, you know, suggest edits that maybe if it's 80% right about the edits it suggests, we might find it useful to help us do things? Can it scan over Wikipedia and find basic errors?
So you
and
might might use it, yeah.
Yeah,
I want to get through as many questions because minutes are against us. The woman there with great fortitude, and can I have someone? There's another woman over there, and then we'll come to the gentleman over there. Can you wave to me? You know I've seen you. That's it. Stand up, and then we'll get a mic to you. Then we'll save time. Yes, your question.
Hi. Thank you for all the information. Could you please tell us, is Wikipedia using AI to give us the information that is being given?
So very, very little. So we do have some machine learning tools that are helping to identify vandalism, vandalistic edits, and some of the community is using those to speed up the work of finding real vandalism. There are some community members who are starting to experiment a little bit, but there's a lot of skepticism about it because it's just not good enough yet. And you know, I think when you first start casually using large language models, it's an amazing thing. You try it and you ask a question, you're like, wow, like a computer, I can talk to a computer and it can answer me. But when you try to do good quality reference materials, I mean, the Wikipedians will be the first to tell you, this is actually really, really hard. It's really hard to get it right. It's really hard to judge the sources and all of these things. And oftentimes, you need several people to chew on something, to find the right wording and things like that. And so we're not finding it useful for that. So not yet, not at all, really.
Well, there was a man who had his hand up for an hour. That's you. Can we get a microphone to him? But we'll go to the woman standing with a microphone first. Stand up so they get a microphone to you. There we go. Yes, madam, you've got the conch. Go for it.
Hi.
Yep.
So I first want to tell you that yes, I do donate to Wikipedia.
Could you hold the microphone closer? There we go.
Okay, I'll just talk louder.
Okay.
Okay, that works. I first want to say that I do donate to Wikipedia because it is a worthy thing to donate to, and I also send I've also sent students there to also. It is a great place to start your research. One of the things is, you know, it's one of the questions that comes up a lot is, you know, bias with a Wikipedia page. I know there was recently, you know, the whole hullabaloo with.
If you can make it a short question, literally we're fighting seconds.
With the page on the Gaza genocide, can you give kind of an overview of that? Because there's been a lot of controversy about that particular page. Can you go into some detail?
Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. No. So. For Wikipedia, like one of our core policies, sort of one of the 5 pillars of Wikipedia is neutral point of view. That Wikipedia should not take sides in a controversy. That is a page that I have personally criticized. I don't think we're getting it right there. But there's a lot of discussion and debate, and I'm confident that over time that page will improve. But you know, for Wikipedia, what is interesting about Wikipedia is I'm not the editor-in-chief. I don't go in top down and say, okay, we're going to change this page. Instead, I say, hold on a minute. Let's have a real discussion about neutrality. How do we get it right? What's gone wrong in this instance is what I'm focused on. And more broadly, like the really important thing to understand is that despite, you know, Elon Musk calling us Wokepedia or whatever, and the view, oh, Wikipedia has been taken over by far-left activists. Well, no, Wikipedia hasn't been taken over by far-left activists. Like, the Wikipedia community is very broad, a lot of interesting people, a lot of this, that, and the other. But that doesn't mean every page will be perfect, and it doesn't mean that bias doesn't creep in. Usually that bias, in my view, comes from if the sources are themselves biased, so the bias of our times, the broad things that in 100 years we'll realize we got wrong. In other cases, it's like, well, no, actually, a group of people is making invalid arguments on this page, and it needs more work. And the real answer to that is to bring in more people, to bring in kind and thoughtful people to show us more sources and to say, actually, you've overstated what's in this source. So there's a lot of work that can be done within Wikipedia to make it better. And the important thing is that idea of neutrality is one that is really not questioned in the community. Nobody's saying, no, we shouldn't be neutral anymore. We need to have an agenda. But obviously, sometimes people say they're being neutral, but actually they are not recognizing their own bias. So.
Right, we've been awarded 2 last questions. One is to you, one is to the lady with the mic. Can you make them short questions, or the big hook will just drag us off? So go for it.
For sure. Thanks so much for such a good session. My question is for both of you, actually, specifically focused on institutions. We're in a world with a lot of misinformation. Wikipedia stands out. How do you think institutions will need to evolve to cope with this, I guess, influx of change and hallucinations we see? Yeah. And I'd love both perspectives if we have time.
That's enough of a question. And I'm not going to answer it because we've got only a few seconds and I'm very unimportant. So why don't you take it?
Well, I'm just going to say, since you've been with the BBC for quite a long time, the BBC has, like Wikipedia, a real mandate to be neutral and has come under a lot of fire recently on cases where maybe they haven't been as neutral as they should be. For me, I think anytime you get that kind of a criticism, you really do have to step back and take it seriously and say, okay, we have to grapple with this. Like, what have we gotten wrong? How do we improve? I would recommend that these institutions read my book, The 7 Rules of Trust, to think about how to restore trust in an institution that's having a bit of a wobble or a crisis and has lost trust. I actually think the BBC is fantastic and basically is broadly very, very neutral. And I think that they've had some blind spots. And I think this is inevitable in almost any large institution. Yeah.
Last question, and then go and buy the book. And if you didn't get your question asked, you know, he'll be in a queue captive. So go with a book and you can ask your question there. Yeah.
Hello, Jimmy. This is Riddhi Sharma from India. And I would like to ask this question as a young Wikimedian itself, that I have seen Wikimedians since around 2 years now, and I would like to ask this, that is Wikimedia Foundation doing something to educate the young Wikimedian itself, because AI is going to get increase its use all over wide. So is Wikimedia Foundation doing anything to educate the young Wikimedians to use it wisely related to the Wikipedia?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is fantastic. I love the scarf. She's got a Wikipedia scarf on, which is fantastic. It's a little hot today for Sitch, but yeah, so
that's adorable. Okay.
So one of the important things, the Wikimedia Foundation funds a lot of meetups and events all around the world, local chapters, and I do think a big part of that work with the local communities is about thinking about new technology, new tools, and so the answer is yes, and I think we could be doing more, and I think we will be doing more, because AI has enormous potential to help us as Wikipedians with our work, and it also has enormous potential to produce complete nonsense. And a lot of the volunteers are struggling now with an influx of content that's clearly AI generated and not very good. And that's frustrating because it's, I know we only have 2 seconds. There was a really interesting case in Germany. Somebody was adding references to books. And so one of the Wikipedians in Germany was checking the ISBN number. So every book that's published has an ISBN number globally. And he was like, oh, there's a lot of these new ISBN numbers that aren't even real. They're not even in the database. And he found several from one person. And he went to the person, he said, oh, what is this? And the person said, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm new. I'm just trying to help. I didn't know what to do. So I thought, oh, I'll just add some references. So I went to ChatGPT and I got some book references. And you mean to say it can actually make up ISBN numbers? And the answer is yes, it makes up ISBN numbers. And so that was a one-on-one case where someone of goodwill was trying to help Wikipedia. They were using AI inappropriately. I think it all ended happily because that person was like apologetic and they didn't get blocked or whatever, and they're like trying to make up for it now. But that's the kind of thing that we do need to talk a lot in our community. Like, how do we not become reactionary and say, oh, we hate AI, but also like, oh, AI is great, just use it for everything. No, because it's stupid and it's wrong and so forth. So, yeah,
well, look, there's a real book out there with a real ISBN. It's Jimmy Wales's book. Go buy it. Jimmy Wales, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you all for coming.